Hi, welcome to this week's episode of 10-Year Transformation. I'm JD, your host. And before we get started with this week's episode, I just want to check in and see if you followed through with working on your financial plan, getting your financial house in order, which was the topic of the last two videos. If you haven't seen those two videos, I encourage you to go back and view those videos because I think getting your financial house in order really is the key, rather the cornerstone of making the type of changes that you may be looking to make, that I was looking to make when I was embarking on my 10-year transformation journey. So, like I said, if you didn't watch those two videos, I encourage you to go back, take the time, actually sit through them. They're quick videos, 15 minutes a piece. Go back through them, grab a pen and paper, and start working on getting your financial house in order. Just take an inventory of what you need to do as suggested in those two videos. This video is going to be a little bit different. Initially, what happens is I write the outline of what I want to discuss on the weekends, and then I actually record the video on Monday morning before I upload it. I was actually considering not doing the video this morning, and the reason was I really didn't feel very resourceful over the weekend. I worked on the outline, but I didn't want to get negative. I was feeling very negative toward myself, which is part of one of the aspects of the 10-year transformation I've worked very hard to try to overcome. And so I wasn't feeling great, but I felt that the most important thing was to be truthful and come out and still continue to make the video so that you can see that I'm not immune to it. Things I discuss, the topics I take on, the advice I give are all things that I continue to use. There is no end game in this 10-year transformation in the respect that you learn as you go along, changes you need to make, but you have to really go back and lean on those changes, really the lessons rather. You have to go back and lean on those lessons that you learn over the course of time, and to find your way through different events in your life that may kind of set you off. So just getting started with today. So basically getting back to what I just mentioned, today's topic is called not good enough. This is something I struggle with. I struggle with it my whole life, and maybe you struggle with it too. If you don't, that's great. God bless you. But I do have feelings of inadequacy. No one's ever really thrust them upon me. No one's ever really made me feel less than. But I do struggle with feelings of inadequacy within my own head, and it could come from just needing a 10-year transformation. Created a sense of inadequacy, that it wasn't good enough. It was going to take 10 years to create this new, better version of me. That in and of itself, when I came up with the concept, created a sense of inadequacy in my own life. So it's a recurring theme. And unfortunately, the slightest thing may trigger it. I may see something, read something, hear something, and all of a sudden I go down this rabbit hole of inadequacy. So I thought it was a good time to talk about it because I was feeling not very resourceful, and I felt that it was better to record a segment like this while I was actually in the midst of feeling it. And just to get you started, like I said, I have my notes. I'm going to just refer to them. So most of your feelings of inadequacy, I know mine come from comparing myself. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean comparing myself to another person. It could be comparing myself to my former self. It can be comparing myself to my vision of myself. It could be comparing myself to something I saw on television, a lifestyle that I saw on television. So any of those things can be a trigger for falling down this rabbit hole. So for me, it was just reminiscing a little bit on Saturday night with a new acquaintance about my former life as a commodity trader. And I took that point, I kind of started dwelling on, the what may have been kind of thing that seems to be my trigger. And I kind of fell down this rabbit hole yesterday. Woke up very unresourceful, and it continued throughout the day. And everywhere I looked, to me, were signs of why I'm less than. This is like my Achilles heel, is my kryptonite, so to speak. So this is something I battle with myself. So I'm just going to refer to my notes. A lot of the feelings of inadequacy are thoughts of poor choices that I may have made. you can't really go back and well, you can never go back and change things that you've already done. You can only try to work on not making the same mistake twice. But a lot of my feelings of inadequacy are, oh, I should have turned left when I turned right. I should have made a U-turn when I went straight ahead. That kind of thing where, like, it's easy to see now the mistake you made, but in the midst of it, was it really a mistake? Was it really that crystal clear as it is now? Obviously, in hindsight's 2020, so I'm looking at it through, like, how could you have been so stupid to have made these mistakes? And that's where a lot of the feelings of inadequacy that I suffer from tend to derive themselves from. These are the conversations you have with yourself. The conversations with yourself, or at least the thing I struggle with, is the conversation I tend to have with myself are some of the worst conversations you could possibly have. The reason is, if you're in a bad conversation with a person, you're at a party and you're talking to someone, you're like, this person's boring, this person, all they do is talk about themselves, all they talk about is whatever. You can just walk away. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to get, go and look at if they have more nachos, whatever. When you're having a conversation with yourself, it's impossible to separate yourself. Impossible. Because that person's with you when you wake up, is when you go to the bathroom, when you go to sleep, when you're driving in your car, when you're going to get the mail. When you're doing everything, you are with yourself. So the single biggest conversation that you have to get a hold of is the conversation with yourself. So if you're in a situation where you're contemplating make a 10-year transformation, which is where I was, I can say with a pretty good level of confidence that you're in a place where maybe the conversations you're having with yourself right now are not the best conversations. Maybe you're telling yourself you're poor, you're stupid, you're overweight, whatever the conversation is. Those conversations are not great. You may need to have sort of that conversation, but that recurring soundtrack running in your head is not a resourceful conversation. It's something you have to really grab hold of and identify and say, wait a second, I'm not going down there. I'm not dealing with this. I'm not doing this to myself. So like I said, so you can't get away from the conversations with yourself. Next thing is, I wrote down, I have this on a post-it on my desk, and it says, focus on the present what is, not the past what if. And it goes along the same theme, which is constantly reminding myself, I should have turned left, I turned right. I should have kept going, I should have stuck with that, I didn't, and I went that way, and I really effed things up. That's the kind of conversations that you can have if you really fall down that rabbit hole of really focusing on the what if as opposed to what is. The what is all you can control. That's it. You can't control the past. So your goal, hopefully in a 10-year transformation, is my goal as well. Hopefully your goal is, okay, well, I'm on this road. I want to make sure I become the best version of James DeBella I can be. I want to be the best version of Mary Sue that I can be. Whoever you are, you want to be the best version of yourself. And that starts with the conversations that you're having with yourself. So identify those conversations. What is the negative self-talk? Are you your own worst enemy? Are you being mean to yourself? These are all things that happen. Take it from me. The diet industry depends on this. The diet industry lives off of making you feel bad about yourself. Everyone's losing 200 pounds on whatever, on Fast Slim or whatever the hell it's called. Everyone's losing weight. Everyone's living this fantastic life. Especially if you spend any time on social media, you think you're the only one that's not going on vacation. It's something I talked about in one of my earlier videos. You start judging your own life as if there's someone else looking at it and say, this is what you should be. This is what you should be. So you go down this rabbit hole of focusing on where you feel you're falling short. So focus on the present what is, not the past what if. How I deal with it is through journaling. I like to write. I enjoy writing. I think I'm a pretty good writer. So I journal. I write down my feelings. I write down my emotions. And the reason why this helps is once you compile this journal, you now have a textbook of how you deal with it. Because I'll tell you what, these feelings aren't going away. I've been at this 6 years and I still have feelings of inadequacy. I still have feelings of, I blew it. Every day. But by journaling, I can flip to my journal and say, hey, When was the last time? Oh, this triggered you? Okay. How did you react? How did you get out of that? How did you correct that? How did you course correct? Because the reality is, a lot of times you're by yourself. You don't have a psychologist or even a spouse or a friend that understands you since these conversations are taking place. No one can say, hey, wait a second, in that conversation you said this. How are you supposed to say that when you're having a conversation between your own two ears in silence? So a lot of times you're the only one that can course correct. So by journaling, you have that resource written down. You can look back and say, hey, wait a second, that was that trigger. I ran into this guy that, I used to work with, and then we started talking about the good old days and, hero quarterback nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And I went down this rabbit hole. Wait a second. This guy's not doing anything better than I am. And why am I comparing myself to this person? Why am I going down, allowing myself to go down that rabbit hole? So that's where you have to by journaling, it allows you to course correct when you find yourself going down this rabbit hole. You're also able to get it all out. I had a teacher in high school. He referred to writing, sometimes generating ideas. He used to call it diarrhea of the pen. And he would say, get all your ideas out and then go back and figure out which ideas you want to explore when you're writing a story. So have diarrhea of the pen. Write down all your emotions, all your feelings, what your triggers are. Write it all down. So then when you read it back to yourself, you look back and say, hey, wait a second, that's consistently a trigger. I have to correct that. I cannot put myself in a situation where I'm allowing myself to be constantly triggered by this. I can't allow myself to continue these conversations, these destructive conversations with myself. So by journaling, you have that textbook to go back to. If you were studying math, no one expects you to memorize the entire math textbook. Believe me, I couldn't. No one expects you to memorize the whole textbook, your history textbook. No one expects. You go back. Oh, you look at events. You look at a history textbook. Oh, this happened on such and such a date. That's the same thing journaling does. So I have journals all over. There's journals up there. I got journals over there. My whole house is filled with journals. If I was to get hit by a truck tomorrow, someone would go through all these journals and be like, maybe the guy threw himself in front of his truck. I'm being very, very honest. I mean, some of my journaling is like, wait a second, this guy, but I get the thoughts out and I'm able to evaluate where those thoughts are coming from and try to correct them. And that's basically what I'm advising you and trying to be a partner with. I mentioned the textbook. Let me explain something too. This is a good point. And I'm going to keep this video, try to keep it to 15 minutes like the other videos. All problems are the same. Okay. You can throw your problems all in the same few baskets. Problems with personal relationships, health and well-being, and internal relationships. Those are the three big baskets that I kind of think of as all problems fall into one of those baskets. So when you're having a kind of a mental, breakdown, if you will, figure out which basket this is. Is this something I have to address? A relationship I have to address? Is it a health and well-being issue I have to deal with? Or is it a personal relationship that or interpersonal relationship that I have to address? So you kind of figure out where the problem is stemming from, and then you can go back and say, okay, well, this is how this is my textbook. This is how I deal with health and well-being issues. And you can go back. Health is easy. Am I eating right? No, this triggered me. I started eating all this sugar, and then all of a sudden I noticed my mood became crap. Well, maybe sugar is the reason it became crap. So you're able to go back and use that textbook as a reference. You get the idea. I'm not going to beat a dead horse to death. The single biggest mistake is thinking things will be different if. Okay, that's why I wrote that down. I'm glad I just remembered. I don't have my glasses on, so I was squinting a little bit. Things will be different if. If I'm rich, things would be different. If I'm 50 pounds lighter, things will be different. If things will be different. That is not necessarily the case. It is not necessarily the case. And the reason I tell you it's not the case, I've been rich, I've been poor, still feel the same. I've been fat, I've been thin, still kind of feel the same. I've had good relationships and bad relationships, still kind of feel the same. So what I'm saying is, if you don't make the concrete changes that you need to make and address them and get them out in front of you, the problems are still going to be there. You just have to figure out, they're still going to be there. And you can be like, wait a second. I did everything. I knocked off 50 pounds. I became a vegan. I did this. I'm being a great father. I'm attending every one of my kids' soccer games. I'm making sure I'm present. All these different things I'm talking about. But if you didn't do the hard work of journaling, of being brutally honest with yourself, if you haven't done that hard work, then the results you get, the first time you hit a trigger rather, first time you hit something that triggers you, you're going to fall right back into that destructive thought pattern. So just remember what I'm saying. The problems don't change. You have to do the hard work, and you have to have that resource and understand the problem or the trigger is going to sneak back up, and you're not a failure if you get triggered again. Remember that. I get triggered all the time. I fall back into negative thought patterns. I try to be resourceful, go back and figure out and course correct. That's more important than anything else. Giving up is the worst thing you could do. Course correcting is fine. All right. Again, I need my glasses, but I'm trying to see. A lot of times, like if you're not brutally honest with yourself, that's one of the reasons why you might be a little bit apprehensive about really making that kind of dedicated change that you need to be. That brutal honesty, that phrase I always use, is really at the core of making sure that you're in the right frame of mind. It's okay. I'm wrapping up. I'm running a little bit over, but like I said, try to keep it around 15 minutes. But I thought, trying to beat this one home, because it really is at the core of everything else. And especially next week when we start getting into some relationship conversations, I want to make sure that you're as resourceful as possible. So this week's assignment is figure out which thoughts are holding you back. Figure out patterns you slip into. Okay, this is going to be my last thing I talk about. Patterns you slip into. All right. You're driving on a road. You're driving on your car. You're driving down the street. You always drive down. Trucks go down this road. Cars go down this road. Bicycles, everyone goes down this road. Eventually, the asphalt kind of gets ruts in that road, right? It gets ruts in them. And when you're driving, if you turn around and just look out the window, oh, look at that bird. You turn that way, all of a sudden, you're out of the rut, and the car feels like it's a little bit out of control. You go back into the rut, and you're like, oh, okay, everything's cool. And these ruts have been worn out. Well, I'll tell you what if these ruts were leading you to the abyss? Well, it's so super comfortable driving in the ruts, and you figure, well, the person who went before me, they end up fine, so I'll just keep driving in the same ruts. That's that negative thought pattern I'm talking about. You fall back into those ruts. I fall back into those ruts. You drive back into where it's comfortable. So that's what happens a lot. You go back into those ruts. So what I'm saying is, like, you gotta grind in a new track in your brain, in your thought process. So that's where you kind of, if you think of that little visual there, that's what I want you. That's the takeaway. I'm glad that was the last thing I said. Is you want to create new ruts. Ruts is a bad term, but new grooves. Grooves is a better word. New grooves that will allow you to travel to where you want to be on your 10-year transformation journey. You like that? I tied it all in at the end. Okay, last little bit. Still not making any money from any of my product promotions, but today I'm wearing a poncho. It's actually for fly fishing. I took up fly fishing. Beautiful product, Poncho.com. They have beautiful shirts. I highly recommend them. They're a little expensive, but they're worth it because quality. There's an expression about quality I can't remember offhand, but they are very, very good quality product, and I highly recommend them. Poncho. I guess if you go to Poncho.com. Check them out. They're about $90 the shirts, but I'm sure they're going to last forever compared to a cheap shirt. You buy in Walmart, it's not going to last. So that one good shirt you buy, it's going to last you 10 years, and crap that you buy in Walmart is going to end up in a landfill and just contribute to destroying the planet, which leads me to the next product I'm promoting, Patagonia. This hat I just bought, this trucker hat, I love it. It's my new Patagonia trucker hat, and it is made from recycled bottles. And I think we have to do all we can to prevent plastic from entering the ocean. Something I'm passionate about. I love the ocean. I love swimming. I hate seeing plastic in the water. I pick it up whenever I can. it upsets me immensely. So support Patagonia tries to do the right thing, and it really it's really a good product. Still, remember, and I'll put that in the comment in the about section, the product somewhere. Also remember, yet to get a like or a comment, but again, hope springs eternal. So if you leave your email address in the comments, I will send you that free box of Purple Carrot, $70 value to the first person who leaves their email address in the comments. Secondly, for every like I get, Territorio de Zaguetas will get $1 for every like. And until next week, this is JD. Have a heart of a lion. Be the best you can be, and do these assignments. Until next week, have a great day. Take care.